There were two conversations I had about being trans. One was with a natal male who said, I just feel like these body parts are very nice, but they're not mine, and I'd like to get rid of them. One of them was with someone who had been born female and who said, I'm a little like one of those IKEA furniture sets that looks really great, and then you discover there are a few parts missing at the end. I found, though, that the experience of trans people in general was not that they said, oh, it looks so interesting over there, I'll try being that other kind of person, but rather that they said, there's something obscuring who I really am, and I need to be my real and authentic self. And so even though people talk about sex reassignment surgery as some form of enhancement, I felt as though it wasn't really an enhancement. It wasn't something that was being super added. It was a way of stripping someone psychologically rather than physically, but stripping someone back to their real core and to who they knew themselves to be. As I worked on the chapter on trans, I was struck by the problem that there are some people who, in earliest childhood, strongly identify as a member of a gender other than the one to which they were born, who later don't feel that way anymore. And there are other people who are absolutely clear from day one that they have the wrong body and that they need to be the gender that they know themselves to be, for whom that's a persisting matter. One of the problems, though, that these children face is that gender is not the same as sexuality, and often people confuse the two of them. The fact that we talk about the male sex and the female sex, it's all pretty closely tied in with the sexual. I didn't meet these kids and think, oh, this child is going to behave in this sexual way or in that sexual way. I thought, this little child knows that she's a girl, or this little child knows that he's a boy, and he only wants to do all of the boy things, and he just believes that's who he is and that's how he wants to live. It's a subtle but a very important distinction. The trans experience can start very early. I mean, there are people who say, my child was on the changing table telling me that he was a girl. He was 2 years old and he would only play with girl toys. In a way, sometimes the play of trans children seems almost politicized. Most children at 2 will play with some toys for boys and some toys for girls, and the distinction comes later on. Some of these trans kids, from the earliest age, seem to be drawn only to the things that are associated with the gender other than the one to which they were born. The actual surgery that some people have as part of transition, gender reassignment surgery, usually doesn't take place until people are 18 or older. But there are a whole variety of stages that come before that. People are having counseling. Some people start taking cross-gender hormones much earlier. They start taking them in adolescence or in what would be their puberty otherwise. People obviously start wearing other kinds of clothes. They take on another name. They're presented under another name to family. So even though the surgery is usually late, and even though the lay public tends to think of the surgery as determinative, actually, the surgery is frequently just a grace note to a transition that's been going on for years and years. One therapist I know who's had an interest in this area said to me, it might help if they all wore T-shirts that said, don't worry, it won't happen to you. There's some sense in which people find the disruption of the gender binary incredibly threatening. Trans people are murdered at an unbelievably high rate. They're abused at an unbelievably high rate. They're attacked all the time. Many of them are constantly afraid for their physical safety. We like binaries as a society. It makes life tidy and orderly. But I think also that there's increasing evidence that all of us have got some, as it were, masculine tendencies and some, as it were, feminine tendencies, and that the process of trying to balance those is a tricky one. And I think people just genuinely, they do feel frightened. They feel as though their masculinity is going to be taken away by the existence of these people. It's connected to homophobia, which I think also trades in the same set of problems, but it's much more extreme.